Insisting on a wooden, hyperliteral sense of anything is often detrimental to good understanding. This is especially obvious in translating idioms and jokes, for example. Spanish has a phrase, it costs an eye from the face, ojo de la cara. And we kind of have an English equivalent to that. It costs an arm and a leg. It means it costs a lot of money. That's what both of those phrases mean. But it costs an arm and a leg is not a literal translation of cuesta ojo de la cara. It's not a literal translation at all. But it's a better translation because it means the same thing. But if I said something costs an eye from the face, you wouldn't know what that meant in English unless you also knew Spanish and kind of figured that out. Words have meaning, but messages have more meaning. And the message's meaning is determined by how all the words work together. So if I have this phrase, arm and I'm thinking body parts. But as soon as I add leg in there, now I know this is about money, even though that meaning is only hyperbolically related to the meanings of those individual words in that message. Exodus chapter 20 says, "You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them." But just 5 chapters later, when God was giving instructions on how to make the Ark of the Covenant, he said, "And make 2 cherubim out of hammered gold at the ends of the cover. Make 1 cherub on one end, and the second cherub on the other." Contradictory statements from God himself, contradictory commandments. A good thing to ask always is, how did the original audience understand this? If ancient Israel had understood this command as never make anything in the form of anything for any reason, they wouldn't have had dolls, they wouldn't have had mannequins, they wouldn't have had any sort of animal toys, anything like that at all. Is that the issue here? The key was that they don't bow down to them and worship them. That was the real prohibition, because that's what people did. People did that kind of thing, and not just the foreign nations and their religions, but even the Israelites did that kind of thing. They had their little household gods and idols, and they kind of used them as good luck charms, and they bowed down to them and they worshiped them. So that's the real prohibition here. That was not the case with what God told them to make. The cherubim on the Ark of the Covenant were not idols. They were not supposed to bow down to them, just as the angels themselves were always quick not to accept worship reserved from God, for God, from people. They were quick not to accept that worship. So that's the real issue here. It's not about the images themselves. It's about how they were used. Do not bow down to them and worship them. I'm Pastor Clinton. God bless your efforts to learn from His truth.